All right, good evening, everyone. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. Thank you all for being with us, whether you are here in person in the store or watching online. We are so excited to get to dive into a really fun romantasy celebration tonight with two of the most exemplary authors in that genre. Sarah Beth Durst and Kimberly Lemming, and they are here to celebrate two of their most recent books. So we're going to be talking about The Spell Shop, which is just hot off the presses. That is by Sarah Beth Durst. And That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. We'll also be talking about their backlist, so the books that are related to these books, and sort of just the genre in general, I think, also, and a little bit about writing. Sometimes we have a moderator for conversations like this, but sometimes we just like to have two authors who are kind of working in similar genres talk to each other, because y'all know what the ins and outs are like. And we think that's really fun to kind of hear y'all talk shop. We'll also have an opportunity for folks to ask questions. So I think we're just going to kick it right off. But first, I'm going to read your professional bios. So Sarah Beth Durst is the author of over 25 fantasy books for adults, teens, and kids, including the Queens of Renthia series, Drink, Slay, Love, and Spark. She has won an American Library Association Alex Award and a Mythopoeic Fantasy Award, and has been a finalist for the Andre Norton Nebula Award 3 times. She lives in Stony Brook, New York, with her husband, her children, and her ill-mannered cat, who is an indoor cat we just discussed. And Kimberly Lemming is on an eternal quest to avoid her calling as a main character. She can be found giving the slip to that new werewolf that just blew into town and refusing to make eye contact with a prince of a far-off land. Dodging aliens looking for Earth booty can really take up a girl's time. But when she's not running from fate, she can be found writing diverse fantasy romance or just shoveling chocolate into her maw until she passes out on the couch. So welcome, Kimberly. We're glad that you've escaped your fate so far so that you can be with us tonight. I do want to let folks know that you'll be able to ask questions. If you're watching virtually, you can just pop them in the chat or in the little Q&A box, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. And for all of you who are here with us, you just raise your hand when the time comes and I'll bring you the microphone. We do want to make sure that you speak into the microphone so that the folks who are watching online can hear you. So without further ado, please put your hands together for Sarah Beth Durst and Kimberly Lemming.
Hey, thank you all for coming. I'm so excited.
Likewise.
So my book just came out yesterday. So thank you. So I'm extremely excited. So I was thinking we should talk by describing our books.
Sure. You want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Since I started babbling because I just got excited. So this is a spell shop. It's pretty. So this is cozy fantasy. It is very cozy, very cottagecore. It's about a librarian named Keela who lives and works in the Great Library of Elysium. She hasn't really left in 11 years. And then a revolution breaks out and the library starts to burn. So she gathers up as many books as she can, along with her library assistant and best friend, who is a sentient spider plant named Kaz, and he's dropping them with his tendrils, as one does. And they flee and they go to the only place that she can think of to go, which is her childhood home, this remote and beautiful island where they open up a slightly, very illegal spell shop. And I just tried to fill this book with as much joy and delight as I possibly could. I really wanted it to feel like a warm hug, like a deep breath. So it is filled with mermaids and winged cats and a lot of raspberry jam and really good cheese and quirky neighbors and a really nice neighbor that is very friendly and has nice eyes. And it made me happy, and I'm so thrilled it's out in the world, and I hope it makes other people happy too. That's mine.
So what I have here is the third book of my Mythopoeic series, That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human. And it starts off with That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. And the second one is That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Lilliputian at a Werewolf. As you
As
can
one
tell,
does.
I'm very serious about all of my novels. And with this one, I really had no plan whatsoever when I started writing. I'm just like, I'm bored. I'm going to take myself on a fantasy adventure with nachos and dragons and whatever else I want. So basically, what I did is that I gave myself a quest. The first book starts off where you find out there is an evil lich masquerading as a goddess. And if you want to get rid of her, you have to kill her 4 Horcruxes, basically. And then I was just like, what if we just added nachos and I put anything I could in my way to figure out how to get out of it? At some point, I've literally just like rolled a d20 of what's going to happen. And then I'm like, wee, there we go. And so, yeah, the third one has unicorns, more dragons, and basically whatever else I wanted to put in it. And it's just like a fun, goofy fantasy time.
So I have to ask, so do you outline?
I attempt. There is genuine effort to outline, and then it gets thrown out the window.
Yeah. Same. I do outline. I really do. And it's like a page long, and it's bulleted, and about 3/4 of the way through it says, and then something awesome happens. When I get there, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you're like, oh, this was a mistake. Ask Sarah, why did you do that? But it seems to all, eventually works out, except when it doesn't, and those go in the closet. That's fine. We don't need to talk about those. It's all good. Yeah, but I like when plots kind of grab you and say, this is something cool. Do you want to chase that? And you want to say yes. I tried to just when I was writing this book, just to say yes as often as I could, because it takes you interesting places. I think outlines are great, and some writers work brilliantly with them, and some writers, it's nice when you can toss them out the window.
That is so true. Like for my second book, there was a part near the end where my character Bree had to fight like this big bad monster, and I wasn't really sure how to do that because Bree does not have any special powers, and her werewolf boyfriend was not in the building. So then my husband was just like, what if she just like grossed it out? And I'm like, you're a genius. So then she just starts talking about Omegaverse until the monster's like, you're gross. I'm gone. I can't do this.
That was amazing. I loved that scene. She does like the world's best banter. I just adore where these conversations go when they just like the character just goes off the rails with them. I think that's one thing that you can do in the kind of books that we write is follow these random moments and allow for the characters to just be themselves and have fun and live in that moment. You don't have to constantly go plot, chasing after it. You can take a breath and be like, we're just going to amuse ourselves for a while, and that's fine. And that's one of the things I love about writing in this.
It's so fun, especially because if you like to write banter, it probably means you have siblings like I do. And my sisters and I will just get in the dumbest arguments imaginable. And I'm like, you know what? Let me write that down real quick. Just hang on. We're still going to be fighting about this because that was my last muffin. I know you ate it on purpose, but hang on.
I love that, grounding it in like the world. I actually definitely don't intentionally pull from the world of my writing, but then I find people that know me will read my books and they're like, oh, I remember when that happened. Like, what? Oh no, I didn't mean to.
Whatever you mean.
Yes, it just sort of seeps in. I mean, I find that's actually really true with whatever you write, that it gets filtered through who you are and what you love and what matters to you and what your worldview is, which is why a lot of people, when they start writing, they worry about, oh, this idea has been done before. What if somebody else steals my idea? What if they have the same idea? Don't think about that, because everybody has a different story. Everybody cares about different things. And once you filter that story idea through your mind and all the quirkiness that lies within, by the time it comes out your fingertips, it's going to be unique and special and something nobody's ever thought of or written before, even if you're just starting out with like werewolf falls in love with whatever.
See, that's true. I promise you it's been done before, so just do it your way anyway.
Yeah. As long as it makes you happy. I mean, I think that's really the key. I mean, not for every writer. Like every bit of writing advice you give out, I always feel like there should be a little asterisk at the bottom being like, unless it doesn't work for you, then don't do that. But there are plenty of writers that write from a place of pain or a place from anger, and like, that's not me. I write from a place of cheese and like raspberry jam and hot chocolate. Like so much hot chocolate got consumed in the writing of this book, like an ungodly amount of hot chocolate. was consumed. Because I don't know about you, but I can't write food scenes without going for a snack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always snacks. There's usually a bottle of wine when I get stuck, or mead when I was writing that series. Because
I've never drunk mead. What does mead taste like?
it's like a sweet wine. It's honey wine, basically. It's so good. It's like juice. Be careful. You will be drunk like a skunk sooner than you think.
I really don't think that would help my writing. I'll stick to my cheese and raspberry jam.
There you go. I usually just edit sober. Exactly. But no, my favorite is when like, all right, well, I've been stuck on this thing for like a week. I know exactly how to solve this. Then the next morning I'll wake up and look at my manuscript like, what was she doing? What was the point? Where did the plot go? We'll make this work. It's fine.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. I mean, so much of writing, I think, is trusting yourself and just believing that you can do that, which is why it's so important to like finish that first book, because otherwise it's this mammoth thing. You're like, I have to write a novel, and it's this huge mountain that you have to climb. Until you climb it, you don't know that like, oh, I can do that. It's okay. Like my legs hurt a little bit and I didn't bring enough snacks, but you know, it can be done, and I'll do it better next time and bring more chocolate and it'll be fine. So if any of you out there are writing, finish the thing. Even if nobody ever sees it, just like finish it, because then you know you can. You know that the story shape is inside you, and it actually gets easier, which something nobody told me. I mean, it's not all easy. There's always those days when you're like, oh, gee, I wonder what verbs are. But in general, once you know that you can, you sort of trust yourself and be like, yeah, the story will come through. I just need to keep sticking the words together and just trust that it's inside me somewhere. And at some point it will make sense, hopefully, or not. And you can just keep like dancing fast enough that no one notices.
I'm still waiting for the getting easier part. Seems like every novel I write, I'm just like, have I written before? Do I speak English? I don't understand. We'll get there. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
The blind faith in your own ability to see through the story through, I think, is so valuable. It's just like closing your eyes and being like, I'm typing. I hope my fingers are on actual keys, and go. And then it can work. I mean, the trusting yourself, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And being kind to yourself and forgiving when it doesn't come out right the first time. I mean, I do like 30 drafts for each of my books, which is like slightly excessive. Yeah, she doesn't do that, but I do. But I don't. I know when I've done that, like I've done school visits, because I write kids books as well. This one's an adult book, but I write kids books, and I've done school visits, and I tell them I do 30 drafts, and there's always some kid that like falls out of their chair, and I'm like, I'm sorry, and the teacher's like, thank you for saying that you need to revise, but I'm like, no, I do, because it helps me see it better. Like each draft, it's not like I change everything each time. They're not major drafts, but one draft through, maybe I'll be paying attention to the pacing. One will be like the character arcs, another maybe the details of the setting, sometimes how I'm using the white space on the page, you know, like so pay attention to one thing at a time. It makes it a lot more manageable than trying to hold the entire novel in your head from the get-go. So
no, that makes sense. I usually do the most fever dream first draft I can, and then sort of clean it up before I send it to my editor, which thankfully she's a lot better at spotting things than I am, because then she'll be like, hey Kim, where's the lion? Because we lost him in chapter 6. Where is the lion?
you can't lose a lion.
It's like, oh, he went in the cave. Yeah, he's over there.
Okay.
So I'll go back and fix that. And then like by the second or third draft, it's usually like a readable book. And there you go.
That's fair. Yeah, I usually do one draft that's sort of like prop maintenance, you know, like you do in theater, to make sure like you know where like all the hats are, and who's carrying an umbrella and who isn't, and where you put stuff down, because you don't want to end up like like one of my books, it was fairly far along in the process, and my editor was like, Sarah, sweetie, the sunset has been going on for 50 pages now. Maybe that's not how that works. I'm like, but I really love describing sunsets like a lot, so I got a little carried away.
So what gave you the idea for this book?
I wanted to write something that made me happy, really. Yeah, I mean, so March 2020 happened, And and I immediately went to comfort reads. I reread like pretty much everything. I, went to my Tamara Pierce. I went to my Patricia Reedy. I went to Diana Wynne Jones and Diane Duane and all of my, Robin McKinley, all my favorites. And then I also picked up this book called The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. And I read that book and I got to the end and I flipped back to page 1 and I started reading it again because it just felt so gentle and nice and it was beautiful and sweet. Like, it's just a lovely, lovely book. And then I started looking for like, oh, is there more like this? And I picked up The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, which is fabulous. And Lattes and Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. And I read these and I was like, oh, wait, I want to do one. So that's basically, so I started with not a particular idea this time, which is unusual for me, but I started with a vibe. I wanted to write a book that made me feel like those books made me feel. It didn't need to have like anything in common with them other than that, but I wanted to create that feeling, that gentleness, that emphasis on the importance of empathy and kindness and tolerance and the strength of friendship, and that quirky is good. And I sort of ran with that. And I said, I want to write about a librarian because I think books are awesome and librarians are like the best people ever. And obviously she has a talking spider plant. And then it kind of went from there.
Oh, I love that.
How about you? What was it the Mead?
No. So it first started out because I'm a huge fan of fantasy romance, but when I first started writing it back in 2021, I couldn't really find any that was like goofy and fun. And I read like 4 books in a row where the main female character was like just too stupid to live. And I hate that crap because I'm sorry. If an immortal death god has like a knife to your throat and says, do as I say, why are you sassing him? Is my question. I'm going to play along. So I came up with the idea of Cinnamon and Fallon, where like this girl who does not want to go on an adventure gets dragged by this big, powerful guy. And so like, obviously she's not going to be like, well, I'm going to say no to you because I'm stubborn. I'm like, no, she's going to agree to do what she needs to do so he doesn't kill her family. And then it sort of just like spiraled out of control from there. Because I'm like, this is my book. I can do literally anything. There's Pegasus now because I want them. Her horses fly. They kicked a wizard in the face. We move on. And it just, yeah. I just wrote the first draft of first thought, best thought. And when I showed the initial draft to my friends, they're just like, cool. Where are they? Can we get like some background? I'm like, oh, you're right. I should have described settings and place.
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah. I have written books simply by starting, like opening a Word document and writing at the top. Oops, sorry. I'm demonstrating and they're saying things I think are awesome. And then just listing out things that make me happy. Grabbing 3 of them, shoving them together and being like, okay, there's a story there. I can run with that. And I just actually think, aside from that being like a fun writing exercise that anyone can do, I think that kind of goes back to the core of like why I love writing, is because there's that wish fulfillment element to it. Like if you want a Pegasus and you can't ride one in real life, you can put one in your book. I've also written a lot of epic fantasy, and like the first one I wrote was called Queen of Blood. The body count in that book is very, very high. This world of like bloodthirsty nature spirits, I would last literally 5 minutes, and then I would be like, because I'm that friend that you want in the zombie apocalypse, because while the zombies are eating me, you can escape. No survival instincts. But in books, like you can be brave. You can befriend a talking plant. You can ride on a dragon or a mer horse or a whatever you think of, and it's awesome. I just really like writing. It's pretty much the core of everything that I have to say. I really love this. So thank you for letting me do it.
Likewise, thank you for letting me sell you my fever dreams.
Oh, I think writing is fun. I mean, except when it's not, but mostly it's fun. So do you love writing all the time, or do you hit walls sometimes when you're like, I would like to eat this book more than write it?
Oh no. Real talk. Most days I'm not writing. I'm thinking about the story and then dreading actually having to put words on the page. But if you look at my notes app, it's just full of random conversations and plot points. And eventually, there's like 80,000 words just in a doc on my phone of what I want to happen. But once I sit down to actually write the book, it's just like, wow, how? So yes, I love writing snippets. It's when writing the book that makes it hard for me.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I love everybody's process is so different. You talk to any writer anywhere, we all do it differently. I mean, I write every day. Like it's just I have zero work-life balance like at all. And I'm really good with that. Like I want it that way because I love that my stories and my writing and sticking sentences together, which is just what I love to do, is woven throughout my day. You know, I wake up, I write a few sentences, I go get breakfast, I write a few sentences, I empty the dishwasher, I write a few. It's just I have no like set writing time. It's just it's there. It's in my life. It's just what I do, and that's what makes me happy. I find if I have a day where I can't write because life and that happens, the world feels unbalanced. I'm happier when I'm doing this. It's maybe it's because the only thing I know how to do. The rest of it, I'm just winging it. But it gives my life meaning, I suppose. I mean, yes. No, actually, yeah, that's it.
I'm probably playing Baldur's Gate, to be honest with you.
Also a fine way to approach it. No, I know a lot of writers that do it completely differently. Like there's some writers that will binge write. Do you like binge write? Do you?
Yes. Usually, okay. So usually like for a month or two, I'm just like thinking about the story and doing whatever I want, just walking in the woods, playing Baldur's Gate. And then for like a month or two straight, I'm just like, and now I sit down and write 60,000 words.
Yeah, I can't do yeah. I've actually discovered I used to think that my chapter lengths were sort of like it was an artistic choice. This is what I felt the arc of the story was. No, my chapters are about 10 pages because that's how long I can write before I get hungry. So yeah, super deep.
I usually just end on a joke.
That works too. Yeah. But I do think like you absorb a sense of story just through, I mean, ever since we were like babies, we've been hearing stories. I mean, stories are how we live. I mean, it's as important as food, water, and shelter. It's how we understand the world. I mean, you get done with your day, and what do? You tell somebody about it. You're creating it into a story. You immediately form a narrative. When you remember something, you're creating a narrative of your whole life. We're constantly telling stories. So I think when we sit down to write a book, we're just tapping into that innate sense of what we feel a story should feel like. And everybody has a slightly different sense of what they like, but that's what makes our stories all different.
Yeah, she's better at this than me.
I'm kind of obsessed about it. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I suppose it's good because like it's pretty and it has purple edges. They're really lavender and they match. And I bring a purple Sharpie to sign because I'm just that kind of dork. So yeah, no, I'm just came out as a baby. Sorry.
Meanwhile, at least a good third of my writing is just fueled by spite alone. Because like if you're on my newsletter, you'll see the story of how I came up with my next book, which is an alien romance that releases next year. And
tell them the title.
Oh, I got abducted by aliens and I'm trapped in a rom-com.
Isn't that the best? I love that title.
And it actually came about because some folks on Twitter were giving me crap for putting yeet in one of my book titles. And I'm like, bet, double down. And so I just wrote the most unhinged alien synopsis, like dinosaurs, Tamagotchis, Furbies. I was like, I'm going to make this so millennial and so meta that this publisher I was talking to, like, they're going to have to turn me down because I didn't really want to work with them. I'm like, I'm just going to pitch them something so ridiculous. They'll have to say no. They have to. They said yes. I said no. I was like, oh, crap. But then the idea stuck in my head. I'm like, oh no, we can do this. This is going to be fun. Because I love alien romance, but usually it's like, oh, women from Earth get enslaved or they get popped off or whatever. I'm just like, what if it was like a Meerkat Manor situation where an alien researcher gets abducted and puts on this conservation planet because they need her to reproduce the dying species. But they didn't have enough time to research Earth, so they just like took a bunch of DNA from our museums. But what if it was dinosaur museums? And then Cosmic Chaos was born. I'm just like, this is so much fun. And then I sent it to my agent and she's just like, what the fuck? okay, yeah, we'll do it. And then Berkeley was just like, bet, we'll do it. And so that comes out next year.
That's amazing. See, I think that falls under the things I think are awesome. It's just your list is slightly different than mine.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But it's all good. I mean, I just have mer horses and jam, and you have the aliens and the dinosaur DNA. And I think that's amazing.
There you go.
There's nothing wrong with dinosaurs. Do you have like a variety of dinosaurs?
Yeah. I grew up watching Animal Planet constantly, so
yes,
Meerkat Manor was actually one of my favorite shows.
that's amazing. Yeah. I feel like when you're a writer that you can excuse any kind of random research that you want. You can just dive into anything that is a passion, and there's no knowledge that's ever wasted because it's all fodder for a book or a future book. So it's this great excuse to be passionate about something weird, and I love that.
You're gonna see just how much I went down rabbit holes of animal research when you meet Dorothy, because she is obsessed.
I love rabbit holes of all research, actually, but animal research, like weird animal facts, are the best. There's so many particularly if you start getting into marine biology.
Yes.
Amazingly weird things under. I always think people. I've been asked before, like, if I weren't a writer, what would I be? And like, there's actually nothing else that I would want to be other than a writer, honestly. But in a parallel universe, I would want to be a marine biologist because I think that's so cool. I can't be one in this universe because I'm afraid of being underwater and I hate boats. So that wouldn't work out for me. But I really, really love dolphins. So in a parallel, that would be me riding the dolphin, because that's totally what marine biologists do, right? Is they ride the dolphins like all the time. Like that's how they get to work, obviously.
I've rode a dolphin once, and they are pushy creatures.
They're so cool.
They are very cool, but they will push you towards the boat's engine just so you see you get yelled at.
What?
Yeah. Dolphins are assholes.
But they're so smiley. I didn't really want to know that.
Listen, they still let me pet them, and they still let me like do the thing where I put my arms out and they like push me forward. But then one of them was just like a dick, and they're just like, I'm gonna push you towards this boat engine because I think it's funny when kids get yelled at.
I did get to touch a dolphin once, and I was so excited. I just like sobbed for 15 minutes. It was not an impressive display of maturity. I was not a child at the time. Yeah, I feel very strongly about cute things.
Do you think we should open up to questions?
Oh, yeah. Does anyone have questions?
He came ready. He got that mic.
You literally were warned that you get a chance to ask questions, so I think you have no excuse for sitting there.
I'm going to kick us off just so that people don't feel shy. This is from Kira, who is our bookseller up front and our romantasy expert here. So what fantasy tropes do you love that you haven't used in a story yet?
I love fantasy tropes. People talk about tropes as if they're, sorry, I just like jumped in. People talk about tropes like it's a bad thing that you're using tropes. Oh no, cliches you don't want to use, but tropes are an amazing tool. Because particularly when you're writing for an older audience, everybody comes to books with all these expectations, particularly in genre. They're expecting the chosen one. They're expecting there's only one bed. What shall we do? They're expecting these tropes. So then it's a magnificent tool for you to either fulfill them and create this beautiful moment where they feel a satisfaction, or completely subvert them and turn them upside down and tear them apart. And that's really fun too. So I try to use tropes deliberately whenever possible. There's a storm outside and we're stuck in the house. Oh dear. That does happen at some point, and it was deliberately put in because I'm like, that's adorable, I'm going to use that. And I'm not answering your question about which tropes because it just hasn't occurred to me yet, and as soon as it occurs to me I will write it. So yeah, how about you?
So one thing I have not done yet that I love is when they get trapped together and one of them is injured, like an avalanche situation. Love an avalanche situation. So it's probably going to appear in another book someday.
Excellent. Yeah, there's so many good ones out there that it's a beautiful tool. And one of the beautiful things about writing in the genre that we do, particularly in writing romantasy, is that you get to pull tropes from both histories, and your readership tends to be so familiar with both, and it's just really fun. You can sing if you like.
Clear the
Rude.
So would I.
You speak very passionately about storytelling as part of all of our lives, and I love that. And I love books, stories about storytelling.
Yeah.
And for example, one that comes to my mind is Stardust Thief. And I'm just wondering if you have any recommendations or any books or stories that you love that are stories about storytelling or have that component.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of one that I didn't write because it seems obnoxious to recommend one that I wrote, but I'm just gonna go for it. The Stone Girl story. It's actually a kid's book, but when I sit down, I don't think I'm gonna write a kid's book. It's just she's 12, but she's eternally 12 because she's made of, it's middle grade. She is made of stone, and her story is carved on her body, and the same with all of her stone friends. The story is carved on their bodies, and when the carvings start to fade, they fade and they slow. So she sets out on a quest to discover her own story and be able to write her own story. So that is very much that theme. Oh yeah, I pretty much like to write about things that shouldn't talk but do. That's one of my, when you start writing a lot of books, you discover your obsessions, and I'm kind of obsessed with like riding or flying on things, eating yummy things, sunsets, and things that shouldn't talk that do talk. Banter, I adore banter, and hope. That would be my other big one. All of my books are always about hope.
Fair enough. I've bought a lot of craft books, but I have the attention span of a goldfish, so I can't really tell you which ones are great because I have not finished any of them. I'm sorry, I got nothing.
Yeah. Isn't it funny though when you get asked like, oh, what's your favorite book? What have you read recently? And you're like, I have never read a book before. I can't think of anything. They're like 2 a.m. I'll think of like 10 titles at 2 a.m. and I'll be like, wonder who shast that. I'll put that online.
It's like Ruby Dixon, just Ruby Dixon.
We have an online question from Lex. Lex asks, for both authors, what do you love the most about the characters in each of these newer books?
Well, for my third book, I love Charis' love of money because it just cracks me up. Of course, you got like this rich dragon husband. She's like, here, take some money for my hoard. And she's like, oh, I couldn't possibly. No, Charis is just like, awesome. I'm taking some emeralds. That necklace is cute. To give that over here. How much gold can I take? All of it? Wonderful. Put that in here. And then she just went to the next town and bought herself an entire new wardrobe because she's like that.
My favorite part of Cherry, that character, is that how desperately she wants to see a unicorn. I very much identified with that. She's like, I could run away, or I could go home, or you could take me to see a unicorn. I'm like, that would be me. Priorities. So I love that. For my characters, well, Keela, my favorite, I think the line that like sums her up in the book is, it wasn't that she didn't like people, it was only that she liked books more. And that's very much her. She hopes to go to this little cottage and not actually interact with anyone. That would be ideal, but she gets to this little abandoned cottage and she's like, oh wait, I have to eat, there's no food here. So then she has to go into the town, and that's very disappointing, except there's a bakery there with lots of cinnamon rolls and so forth, because I really like cinnamon rolls. I think cinnamon rolls are delicious, and all sorts of pastries. In fact, okay, wait, I'm getting sidetracked. Characters. So I love Keela and her passion for stories and how desperately she wants to protect these books. That's incredibly important to her more than anything else. But my favorite character to write would have to be the spider plant, Kaz, because he's one of those characters. Like sometimes that character just bursts onto the page and you know their voice right away and you can just hear them and you're just hanging out with them the whole time, because like our job is just to create imaginary friends and hang out with them. So he was one that I had his voice from the very beginning, and he's slightly anxious. He worries about stuff like goats. Goats eat plants, and that's disturbing. And are there going to be any goats on this island? Because he really, really doesn't like goats. He's never really met a goat, but so he was a lot of fun to write. And then okay, I won't give spoilers, but there's another little character named Meep that I hope everybody will fall in love with because I love him too.
Pardon me, y'all. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So, talking about characters. Okay. I was wondering, with the Mead Mishap trilogy, do you have a secret favorite, like male lead and protagonist, or do you love them all equally?
Dante's my favorite, hands down. Mostly because I made him just as autistic as I am. So I was like, yeah, he's not the best with social cues, but he's gonna do his best.
He's trying so hard.
He's trying so hard. And I love that he is just like beside himself with anything that's dirty. He's just like, oh no, actually, we're not staying in a hotel because that's disgusting. I'm gonna buy a house and have my kobolds furnish it. You can stay here. My wife will not be in an inn. Who do you think I am? Then for my favorite female character, it might actually be Cherry. That book kind of spoiled me. With my other couples, it was like I was sort of building the adventure and then they fit into it. But with Dante and Cherry, it's like I couldn't separate them because they didn't want to be apart. So that was more interesting because from the get-go, they were just like so in sync with each other.
One of the things I love in cozy fantasy is that you can have a lot of really healthy relationships. Like there's a lot of wonderful romance that's built off of toxic relationships, but cozy, you can choose to have non-toxic relationships. I don't know if any of you read Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. Love that book. That has the couple in that, they're so healthy. I just want to hug them both. They're so good. I love, that's one of those books I'm like, I read it, I'm like, I will be rereading this because this is joyous. And I think that is one of the things in this subgenre that you're allowed to do, or that we've chosen to do and just grabbed and been like, yeah, they're going to be nice. They're going to be nice to each other. We're not going to like fix each other. Nobody's going to like have this angst that take out. No, we have to forgive them. No, they're going to be nice. Damn it.
What a concept.
It's rare because a lot of books are built around the conflict.
Yeah.
But with cozy, which I definitely think the third book, the Last Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human of yours, definitely falls very firmly into the cozy fantasy because like they're so good for each other. But cozy in general tends to be low stakes. That you're not saving the world, you're saving a soul, you're saving a heart, you're saving a person, and that gives you the ability to really lean into that empathy and the connection with others as the core element of the relationships, be it friendship or romance.
Yeah, to be honest, I was surprised that my first book was considered cozy fantasy because there's a lot of depth, lot of in like chapter 2 or 3, Cinnamon has to convince Val not to tear a man's arm off, like, and that vibe stays throughout the book. He did tear another man's arm off, but
it was always hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't kill anyone you like.
A friendly tearing off of the arm.
I did burn down a city, but like in lower caps, it's fine.
Well, Dante and Cherry are getting a lot of love in the chat. That's a favorite pairing. So
I agree with that.
Makes me so happy.
Dana asks, any lessons either of you have learned personally about yourselves from writing your books?
That's a big one. But it's such a good question. I feel like I should have like a really good answer. Wait, I'm thinking. Lessons that I've learned that I love writing. I mean, you do learn what's important to you, what things matter, what things touch your heart. I often find that I don't know and I'm paraphrasing somebody who said this much longer ago, but I don't know what I want to say until I see myself say it. I often don't know until it comes out of my fingertips as I'm typing what the story is. I've gotten to the end of 300 pages and been like, oh, that's what the book's about. Okay, I should like revise that. So you do discover what you have to say. Even if you don't start, like I try not to start with a theme or a message because I think that's a mistake because that can color you want to start with the heart. You want to start with the story. The characters have to feel real to me in order for me to tell the story because they are the boat that we're taking this journey through the story in. They have to feel real. You have to connect to them in order for it to work. So it doesn't have to be about the theme and the message. But you find as you're taking this boat down this story, you find the things that matter to you. You find the things that you want to put into the world. I kind of see like our job as writers, like there's a certain base level of awesome in the world, and our job is to try to add a few more drops to raise that level up. So I think what I discover when I'm writing is what things I think would make the world better. That sounds really obnoxious saying this if I'm going to save the world, but no, I just want to add a little hope and kindness and happiness and just let someone escape from whatever is going on in their world for just a couple hours and be like, here, have some jam, hang out with these people. It's going to be okay. Yeah, I think that's what I want to say. It's going to be okay.
I learned how to make a mean crawfish boil. Because of course, with Cinnamon, she's mostly cooking in her books. But I'm like, well, I can't do this wrong. I have to figure out like the correct type of crawfish fish boil. So I watched so many TikToks on how to do this right and tested out like so many things. And yeah, what you see in the book is what I ended up making for the final one. I'm just like, you know what? This is delicious. And this is what she's going to do.
I did learn how to make raspberry jam.
There we go.
Yeah. Sometimes just had to be done.
A good recipe.
It was a real sacrifice, I have to say.
We have another online question. How do you balance your characters and plot without neglecting either one?
I don't. Usually whatever comes to mind is what works. And usually I base the story off whether or not I'm entertained, because if I'm entertained, that means my readers are probably going to be. And I think that's why I usually get stuck a lot, because if I get bored, I'll just stop and walk away and come back like a week or two later. It's just like, how can I make this ridiculous? We need to bring out the dice and the board. And then I'm going to just like Google random events and just make an entire whiteboard list of like things that can happen. Just like, oh, the umbrella turns into a snake, or Dante gets his head stuck in a ravine. And then I'll just like roll the dice, and whatever it lands on the board is usually what ends up being in the book.
That's technique. That's great. For me, I would say that the characters and the plot and the world, they all kind of evolve simultaneously, and I feel like they should. That the character should arise out of the world, and what they do should, what the plot they go on should arise out of who they are. One of the core things I ask myself when I'm building a character is, what do they want and what do they fear? And whenever I get lost in a character's voice, those are the two things I come back to drive them forward. And if you ever get stuck, you just put two characters that want fear different things into the same room and have them deal with that fact. Or you have a dragon land, or you blow something up. Those two things also work.
Yeah, you can solve a lot of problems by just blowing something up.
Yeah, like that, like Good Place with Jason throwing the Molotov cocktail. Like, yeah, that works.
I actually
then you have an all new problem.
I actually had a part in the upcoming Alien book where I wanted one bed, but there was like 5 houses available. And I'm like, well, we can fix that. And so then 2 long-necked dinosaurs just like straight up blew through a house because they were fighting, and then it fell on another one, and then the one caught fire. And it was like a succession of buildings being destroyed until there was one bed left. Ta-da!
Yay!
So for our last question, romantasy is having a real resurgence right now. What do you think it is? What do you think is so appealing about the two genres mixed together?
Earth is ghetto, and we want to leave.
Yeah.
Like, honestly though, like if you look at the world right now, people are depressed. They don't want to think about what's going on around them. So what's a great way to do that? You pick up a fantasy book and you go on a quest or adventure, you save the world, and you know what? At least in books, everything can turn out to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, people use the word escape like it's a bad thing. People use it. I hate the phrase guilty pleasure, like as if you should feel guilty about loving something. That's terrible. That's a terrible way to approach things. Love things with your whole heart. Don't be embarrassed about it. Who cares if you look dorky? Just love things. And I think escape is necessary, because you can't just throw yourself headlong into everything. You know, like the meme with the dog and everything on fire. You're like, this is fine. mean, you can't take that for that much time. You have to step out. You have to, put on your oxygen mask and just breathe before you can face the world. And I think escape makes you stronger because you get to step away from all the pressures that are on top of you and just get outside your head, get outside everything that's real, and just live in that world. And I think that's why romantasy is popular right now. Well, it always has been. The other answer I was going to give is because they're both awesome. So yeah, which would have been a much shorter answer. So.
I said that was the last question, but we do have a very specific question that came in. So for Kimberly, if Mead Misshapes does get a film, would you do live action or cartoon?
Animation. I would die. I actually have a degree in media arts and animation, so if I get my own anime one day, you would never hear the end of it. I will be insufferable.
And then will Balabash and Sunbeam get a book? I've read all of your books and love them, so whatever you do, I will be excited for it. Says Lex.
Yes, someday. Currently, I'm still working on Ambrose and Usha, who are just fighting me tooth and nail. After that, it's going to be Alexis, and then after that, I think it's going to be Balabash.
So there you go. You have it. You hear it first. Hear it here first, y'all. Well, thank y'all so much for answering all of our questions. Thanks to everybody who asked a question. We really appreciate it. I want to remind folks who are watching online that if you don't have the books yet, you can click this teal button at the bottom center of the screen to buy your books now. And we'll send you signed books while supplies last. So get your orders in now. They're beautiful. Will you hold up your beautiful book and show your beautiful purple edge book? Yes. So they are sprayed edge books, which is awesome. So go ahead and put those orders in. Thank you so much for being with us. And for everyone who is here, we would love for you to hang out, get your book signed, chat amongst yourselves. There are lots of books. If somebody brought you here tonight and you are new to this series, you can buy the first few books in the series, which would be great. And tonight's event is brought to you by Charis Circle. That's our nonprofit. Charis hosts over 275 events a year. So if you would like to make a donation of $5 or whatever in support of that work, that is great. You can come see me, or you can drop some cash in this basket right here, or you can round up on your book purchase up at the front. So once again, let's give one more round of applause, and thank you all so much for being here.